Hello and welcome to my 10th Star Wars unboxing video. So a little bit of a mini milestone there, the 10th one. So today we've got just two boxes, this absolutely enormous one here and this smaller one here. So in this big one, having a bit of a peek, we have loads of vintage board games. So lots to go through there. Really heavy box, that one. I think it's absolutely packed to the gills with vintage toys and games, and this box here appears to be just full of carded figures. So there's a few like well, there's all sorts of Jedi ones, there's Power of the Force, absolutely loads to go through there. So that is going to be the focus of today's video. So without further ado then, sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay, so I've unpacked all that. Now, it wasn't actually all strictly Star Wars. There were a couple of other vintage board games. There was a Sweeney one, Mission Impossible, and a couple of Escape from Colditz board games. So since they're not exactly Star Wars related, I've not included them in this video. However, there's still absolutely stacks to go through. Now, I pulled the camera out of it just so that we can get this first game in, which is the Destroy the Death Star board game, just because it's so massive. But what a great box art that is. In actual fact, it reminds me quite a bit of the Palatoy Death Star for some reason. But I do absolutely love this one. So it's a Parker one. And you'll notice this has got French and English language. So I'm not sure if this is Canadian or if it is a French one. But maybe having a look inside, we might be able to find a few clues. So here's the instructions here. Yes, look at that. So it's actually got Parker Brothers with a PO box in Ontario, which of course is in Canada. So this is a Canadian version of the Destroy the Death Star game. Who'd have thought it, eh? Looks in nice complete condition. There's never a lot to these board games. The most impressive bit basically is the board, although that's particularly nice. This spinner there with Obi-Wan in the corner there, that's really nice actually. That little bit of graphic, let's pull that in front of the camera. That's really really cool, that. But what a massive board game it is, absolutely enormous. And yeah, quite interesting to see that was a French-Canadian version of that particular one. Certainly doesn't come up very often, and well, it's a nice little game, that one. So that's that one. We'll put that to one side. The next one, thankfully, is a little bit on the smaller side, and this is the Battle at the Sarlacc Pit. This is also Parker. Now this is the US version. I'm not sure if this came out in Britain actually. I think it probably did. Alas, we can't have a look at this one because it's still sealed. And this was, yeah, it's got the US details on it there, so maybe this was the American one, but obviously around 1983, 1984. Quite a nice little game, this one, as I recall. I have seen these made up where you do get these small figures and you create the Sarlacc pit in part of the box there, and the trick is to try and stop your guys falling into the actual mouth of the Sarlacc. It's actually quite an inventive little game, that one. So that's pretty cool. It's the Battle at the Sarlacc Pit. Now this next one actually isn't a board game, but was in with my board games, I guess, to keep it flat. And this is the a Return of the Jedi memo board. But this is Icarus. So if you remember in the last video, we had a look at the, I found some placemats, some big plastic placemats. This is from the same company, Icarus. It's dated 1983. It's actually got a pen on it as well. And this one's also sealed. And this would have been, well, yeah, a memo board. So you could write your, there you are, you could write your shopping list on this one. And have a little Scout Walker in the background there as well. It's just really cool, that. I really like that. I had no idea I had that one, completely forgot about it. Now, this next set I remember getting from the States around the time, during the time we had the shop, and it's a Star Wars postage stamp collecting kit. Now, bit of a weird thing to do this because, you know, even back in the late 70s, kids weren't really collecting postage stamps anymore. But this was a nice item. It's very much Star Wars based, with a Star Wars stamp album in there, and a selection of stamps and stamp hinges, little magnifying glass. Quite an unusual sort of crossover item that, produced very early on, of course, when there was no figures. So 1977 is the copyright date on this one. So maybe a bit like the early Burt kit. It was released to fill the void for kids looking for Star Wars stuff. Now we zoom forward in time to this, which was, I remember, being really quite controversial at the time. I only picked it up because it had some exclusive Topps trading cards in, but this was a 4-pack which actually had near perfect replicas of 4 original Kenner figures, and this is why collectors were up in arms at the time. I didn't buy a lot of this stuff back then, a few bits and pieces basically, because, you know, I'm a vintage collector and who's got the room for it, let's be honest. But this piece from 1995 was actually pretty good, and I have to say it's sort of aged quite nicely now, hasn't it? That I'm a huge fan. That widescreen set of cards, they did several, a huge fan of those. I think they're beautiful. Some of the best cards Topps ever produced, bar those original blue and red sets that we had in the UK. But anyway, I thought I'd show that. Yeah, as I said, it's one of the more up-to-date items that I've got, although it's 22 years old. So there you go, make of that what you will. Now this next set, once again, I completely forgot that I had this, and this was it's a rub-down transfer set for the Ewok village. Now, I don't mind the transfer stuff, but I've never been a massive fan of it. But this is enormous, isn't it? So you actually get a big Ewok village scene, a diorama, as it were, and then you have to rub down all your transfers. So there's 4 transfer sheets in there and a little pen to rub them down, and you could fill your diorama up. That's pretty much all there is to it. So a huge box for just that. But I would imagine quite a lot of play value, to be honest, that one. Dated 1983. Thomas Salter in Britain, printed in Italy. So yes, the UK adaptation of that. Once again, a really big set. Wonder how many of those have survived, you know? So that's that. And then the next on to some more games. So this is the Escape from the Death Star game. However, this is a German version of it. I believe I've already shown the Palatoy version. I think there's about 12 different ones of the same classic game. I'm particularly after a Japanese one. I haven't been desperately hunting for it, but if one of my viewers has got a Japanese one of this, I would be quite interested in it. But this is the German one, Krieg to Stern, by Parker. I think the contents are very, very similar to all the different versions of this. Obviously it's in the German language. And the instructions there as well in German. Great stuff, absolutely classic board game for this. I can understand why it got released all over the world. Here's another one. This is the Kenner American one. So, as I said, I have already shown the British Palatoy. This is the USA version. So we've got those two. Now, around the same time, we had this one, which was the Adventures of R2-D2 board game. Now, this was a slightly different one, also equally popular. This one, interestingly, is also in... Yeah, this is also a Canadian one. I wonder how I managed to get these Canadian ones, because it's Ontario there. Quite unusual for me to have Canadian stuff, but there we are. What a magical... Look at that, what a really colourful board that is, actually, isn't it? Pretty cool. I do remember playing this one as a kid as well. Looks like a sort of 70s quiz show, doesn't it? Doo-doo-doo. Yeah, I do vaguely remember playing that one. So that's Adventures of R2-D2. Now, this next one is for Empire Strikes Back. And this is Yoda the Jedi Master game. And if you can believe it, I almost can't believe this, but this is also French-Canadian. Made and printed in Canada. What is going on? I've got the best British connection of Canadian games in England. It's just ridiculous. I do love it though. This is actually quite a scarce game, this one, as far as I recall. It's nothing like the Escape from the Death Star or the R2-D2 game. This is rare. And this is really nice because it's sealed, of course. God, look at them on the back there. Aren't they having fun? You gotta wonder what happened to these kids, you know. They're all grown up now and they've never mentioned it. Not bad, that. All right, I sort of semi-remember the artwork being a bit better than that. The look looks a little bit anemic, but hey-ho. I'm just gonna, I think we're just about have to move these back a little bit further for the next one, which is Wicket, the Ewok and Friends food gathering game. Well, you know me and Ewoks. I'm not a fan. However, this one is also quite nice in the fact that it's sealed. Now, thankfully, yeah, Beverly, Massachusetts. This is a normal American edition, not Canadian. I don't think this one ever came out in the UK. Really nice to have that one sealed, so pleased with that. Next one is once again a more modern item. So this is the Star Wars Monopoly set. Now, this, I believe, was the very first Monopoly, Star Wars Monopoly that got released. I know there's been multiple versions since then, but this is the original. And I always liked the game of Monopoly. I have opened it, but I'm pretty sure it's all pretty much as mint as when you bought it, this one. Yeah, all the stuff's packeted and sealed still. So although it's not sealed, in the outer box, the actual game itself is as it was released. A little bit dusty. But yeah, still quite a nice little item there, the Star Wars Monopoly. If you ever get a chance to get it, it's recommended. Now, that's it for all those board games. And boy, was there loads of them. Miles more than I thought. As I said, I'm not going to bother including the Colditz stuff or Sweeney and that. If you want to, I will put that on another video in the future. However, looking ahead, it looks like I've got about another 15 to 20 carded figures to go through as well, which were in the other box. So I'm just going to pause it there and I'll rearrange the camera a little bit, and then we'll get started. So this is the first of the carded that I've got. Now, this is one of those ones that came out in 95, 96. And the reason I picked this particular one up was because, if you recall, I've been collecting the ones with the THX flyer sat behind the figure. That was when the trilogy was released with the THX certification on video back in the mid-90s. And that was quite a nice little run. I've got about 3 or 4 of those, I think. So that's why that one's in here. Now, the next one is a Power of the Force carded for Romba. And I don't have many Power of the Force. In fact, I don't really know how many more I've got to show you. But this is certainly one of the ones that's there. To be honest, I would prefer this as a tri-logo because the bubble would be less yellow. But I do like the coin ones. I had a few in my collection, but I think I traded them on for regular tri-logo or British Palatoy versions, but all the same, it's quite nice. I never owned any of the real rare ones, such as like Anakin or Yak Face or ones like that, but yeah, I never chased them down because I already had them as a tri-logo version. But all the same, it's nice to have representations of all the different cards in my collection, and I've pretty much got like one of everything, I would think, of the different versions. Now, this next one is Weequay. So a nice, beautiful flat card, this one. And it's on a standard Kenner card. Nice unpunched. The bubble yellowed a bit. But all the same, a really nice nice example of, not my favourite figure by any means, but still nice to have him on a nice little card like that. Now, the next one, not quite as nice card, but it was... it's a British Bespin security guard. Now, he's not bad. It's not bad, but it's got a little bit of wear, shall we say. This one. This is actually, it says it's a clipper one. And the card feels a little bit thinner than regular cards. So maybe this is another slightly suspect one, but all the same, I like it. I've had it for a long, long time. But maybe if I had the chance, I might get a slightly minter one if I could find one. Now this is a rarity in itself. It's a Kenner card which hasn't yellowed. So old squid head here. And the card hasn't yellowed. I wonder why that is. What's going on there? But this one has got a matte back. Rather, oh, and look, it's got that hole in the back. So that means, does that mean, Mr. Blacked Out Ewoks, that this is a little leady? I'm going to need you to comment on this one, old bean, to let me know exactly what it is, because this has got the hole on the side, hole in the back, which has prevented the bubble from yellowing because there's air got to it. But that also means that it's not an official sort of Kenner one per se. So I'm going to leave that in the hands of the Blacked Out Ewoks and see what he has to say about that one. Next, Lando in Skiffguard disguise. Now, this is a nice one. He's unpunched. The bubble's not too bad either. This is a nice Palatoy card with Niem Num offer on the back, but no Niem Num sticker on the front. But you could get Niem Num from this one. Yeah, nice little carded example of that one of Mr. Lando. Always quite a cool little figure, that one. Didn't mind him. And this next one is a Death Star droid. I always loved the Death Star droid. I absolutely loved it. A real notorious one to find mint loose. But this is nice. Now this is unusual. They've got the little thing separating his legs there. The cardboard insert. You don't see that much in the later figures. I wonder if that was old stock that they just carded up on the new Return of the Jedi card, I wonder. Lovely all the same. You know, the thing was, I actually swapped this one back in the day because I had a Tri-Logo one, and it was just as mint, and I bet you that Tri-Logo one looks fantastic compared to this one with the yellowing. Oh, I don't know. Oh, the hindsight of time, eh? If we only knew what was going to happen, you know? And I was just commenting to a friend of mine recently how the memory cheats. So you think you've got something, and you sort of cross it off your list and think, right, I've got that now, I don't need to bother with it. And then when you get it out 20 years later, you think, oh, blimmin' heck, that's not as good as I remembered it. And that happens quite a bit with collecting. The memory does tend to cheat a little bit. Right, well, this one's okay, though, isn't he? So Admiral Akbar. So I absolutely love Admiral Akbar. I'd almost be tempted to do a focus collection on Admiral Akbar, but if I was ever going to do a focus collection, I'd do it on one of the earlier figures, maybe one of the 20 or 21 backs, because 12 or 21 releases rather, simply because there'd be more variety. If you did a focus on Admiral Akbar, I mean, how many are there? So yeah, I do love looking at focus collectors and their collections. I've seen some absolutely amazing ones over the years. They just blow your mind. In fact, one guy, a focus collector on the Escape from the Death Star board game. So there you go. There's focus collectors for everything. So Admiral Akbar, yeah, nice figure, that one. This is probably one that I might end up doing a focus run on, and that's the Power Droid, because I absolutely love him. And he's not the most expensive figure to get. I love the little Gonk droid. Absolutely loved him. And these are ones that I did end up star casing, so that's quite good. Next one here was the Emperor's Royal Guard. Another really great figure, this one. Nice unpunched Kenner example. These are all very, very similar card backs and fronts, so I'm not dwelling on them too long. FX7, I always thought this was a great figure because he had plenty of play value with all his arms and appendages and things. This one, not too bad. It's a little bit creasing I see in the top right corner there, but still a lovely, like, unpunched example. And I think virtually all of these have been like 70, 77 backs. Now this next one I see has got a bit of a ripple, and that's the Ugonaut. So the card there has got a little bit of sort of bending up there, but still all right. I was never really much of a fan of the Ugonauts in Empire Strikes Back. I don't know why, but I don't know. There we are. It's just me. But this is a nice carded example. Can't do anything wrong with that. Unpunched. Maybe if I popped it in one of those acrylic frames, it would push the actual card back down a little bit. Now, this next one, wow, there's a story to tell with this. So, in fact, what I shall do, I shall get this one out of the box, because although it's only a Gamorrian guard, the story with this one is quite interesting, I feel. So, back when we had Purple Haze, a dealer friend of ours said, "Oh, you trade a lot with the States?" I said, yeah, we do. And we used to send last 17 figures out to various dealers in America and swap them for brand new American action figures that we'd sell in the shop. We would just be selling common vintage at the time over here and trading it with the States. Now, one of the things we got from this dealer was a case of, I think it was 96 Gamorrian guards. That's literally all that was in it, was a Kenner case of sealed brand new Gamorrian guards, and this was one of them. So this was pulled from the case, and it's as mint as you're ever going to get. And this is my example of it. Now, once again, the bubble's yellow, but, you know, I actually thought the bubbles had yellow even back then. But he's just pristine in every way. And we had so many of them. I think we sent about 50 to America. We were selling them in Purple Haze in the shop, I believe, at like a tenner each. Brand new carded Kenner Gamorrian guards at a tenner each. Can you believe it? But that's what it was like. However, that was over 20 years ago. Times have changed a tad since then. So this next one we're going to look at is Lando in his general's outfit. Now, I don't know, I can't quite remember if this was part of the find when I got those few last 15 figures for 29p in that find, or if it was one that I got a little bit later. But all the same, he's a nice unpunched example. I actually do like these with the 159 stamp on, and he did look pretty damn good in that. And here's another one from the same period, which is Luke in his battle poncho. And this is not the 159 version, but same tri-logo. A little bit of card rising there, so maybe this would benefit from going in an acrylic shell. And I have been researching those. I see GW Acrylics is a British manufacturer of those, and I'm thinking of getting some of my key pieces sort of boxed up like that. Not graded, because I'm not fussed about that, but just, you know, for protection more than anything. But this is a really nice nice carded example of a classic figure. Now, the next one's actually one of my all-time favorites, so I'm going to pull this one out of the star case as well, because this is the Imperial Commander, and this is a British one again, a Palatoy. I had the very good fortune to meet Julian Glover, the actor who played the Imperial Commander, and you also remember he was the Attack Commander as well, at one of the NEC shows about 10 years ago. I think he was last seen on screen in Game of Thrones. He was in that series, and what a really great guy. So I will pop a picture into the video, because I took a photo of him actually signing it, and he was holding it up as well, just as a little level of extra authenticity. But he was a really, really nice guy, and I said, I've seen you in so many things that I love. Doctor Who he was in a couple of times, including one of my favourites, the Douglas Adams written City of Death. He was the bad guy in For Your Eyes Only, the James Bond film. He was also the bad guy in the third Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He was the bad guy in that. So a fantastic, multi-talented and accomplished actor who was an absolute delight to see in the flesh. And yeah, as I said, I got him to sign my little figure there, which he had a little chuckle over. And that is the end of all the figures for this week. One. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that latest look through. A couple more boxes from the old vintage Star Wars collection. Certainly there was some great stuff in there today. So if you have enjoyed the video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, do please consider subscribing to the channel for regular vintage Star Wars content every Friday. So thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.